The galaxy was falling into silence. Worlds that once sang with voices, trade, and laughter were now nothing more than broken shells in the dark. Star systems that had been strong for centuries burned out like candles crushed by an unseen hand. Armies that had sworn never to kneel were scattered into dust. Entire fleets vanished without even a signal of distress. Across the void, one truth settled into every mind. There was no hope left. The enemy had come like a storm. They were not born of reason nor guided by mercy. They moved through the galaxy with a hunger that could not be stopped. Their ships were vast shadows blotting out the light of suns. Their weapons tore through planets as if they were made of glass. Every battle was the same. Resistance, no matter how strong, ended in silence. They were a tide that nothing could resist. Alien nations that had once called themselves unbreakable now whispered in fear. Councils of leaders argued not about victory but about how long they could survive. Some begged for surrender. Others prayed for a miracle. But the stars gave no answer. The voices of resistance grew quiet one after another as each civilization fell. It was said that even time itself had given up hope. And yet there was a story. It was told in fragments, half remembered and half believed. Long ago, before the galaxy had known despair, there was a fleet. It belonged not to the proudest empires nor to the most ancient races, but to the humans. Humanity, small in number compared to the vast powers of the stars, had once built ships so fierce that even the greatest warlords hesitated before them. Their fleet was said to be unmatched. It was said to carry the strength of countless battles forged in fire and blood. But humanity's fleet had vanished. Some claimed it was destroyed in a final battle, consumed by war too great to record. Others said it had fled into the dark, hidden beyond the edge of the known stars. With the passing of centuries, it became nothing more than a tale, a whisper shared among the desperate. Humanity had a fleet once. If only it could return. But no one believed such a thing could be real. Until the signals came, they were faint at first. Strange bursts of energy detected by sensors in forgotten systems. Old communication channels flickered with coded pulses, carrying patterns no one had seen in generations. Scouts who ventured too close never returned. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Something was moving in the dark. The enemy dismissed it as noise, as the last gasp of a dying galaxy. But the frightened, the broken, and the desperate began to hope. In a forgotten sector where the stars burned dim and the maps showed nothing but void, a shape stirred. A single colossal ship, its hull scarred by time yet burning with emerald light, rose from silence. Behind it came another and another until the darkness was filled with titans of metal. Each one carried the old marks of Earth. Each one bore the silent oath of a people who had not been erased but had been waiting. The forgotten fleet of humanity had awakened. It was not announced. There was no warning, no declaration of war, no broadcast of intent. The galaxy only knew when systems that had already been claimed by the enemy suddenly lit up with fire. Entire invasion forces disappeared in the black. Warlords who had once mocked the weakness of others now faced an iron wall that did not bend, and the whispers changed. They are back. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten. It was not victory, not yet. It was not safety, for the enemy was still vast. But in the hearts of the scattered survivors, one feeling began to rise: hope. Humanity's forgotten war fleet had returned, and with it came the promise that the galaxy was not finished. The enemy spread across the galaxy like fire on dry grass. Nothing slowed them. Nothing turned them back. Where their fleets passed, silence followed. Planets that once glowed with life became blackened wastelands. Their oceans boiled away, their skies broken into storms of ash. In the ruins, only echoes remained. The invaders did not speak of peace. They did not send terms or promises. Their message was written in destruction. Each world was a warning to the next. Resist and you will be erased. Their war machines were endless, built not with beauty or honor, but with the cold shape of hunger. They consumed, they conquered, and they moved on. Some empires had believed they were strong enough to resist. They gathered their fleets, armed their weapons, and faced the storm. But the storm did not break. Fleets numbering in the thousands were torn apart in minutes. Planetary shields that had held for centuries crumbled under weapons no one understood. Even the bravest commanders learned the same bitter truth. The enemy could not be beaten. Pride fell. The great councils that once ruled entire sectors spoke only of survival. Their voices shook with fear as they argued in circles, too afraid to act, too weak to fight. Some chose surrender. offering their worlds in the hope that mercy would follow. But mercy never came. The enemy accepted their surrender with silence, then burned them as if their words had meant nothing. Others chose to flee, abandoning their borders and retreating into the deepest corners of the galaxy. But the enemy's reach was long, and no hiding place lasted forever. Hope became a word no one dared to speak, and in the silence many turned their thoughts to humanity. For generations, humans had been a small voice among the stars, stubborn and restless, always fighting against odds greater than themselves. But humanity had vanished long ago, taking their fleet with them. No signal, no message, no warning. It was as if Earth had simply been swallowed by time. Some said the humans had destroyed themselves. Others believed they had faced the enemy before and lost. Now, with the galaxy breaking, leaders repeated the same line. If the humans were here, they would fight. If the fleet still existed, we might stand a chance. But they spoke those words like a prayer, not a plan. For everyone knew the truth. Humanity was gone, and their fleet was nothing more than a story told by desperate minds. The enemy laughed at such stories. To them, the idea of humans was nothing. To them, the galaxy was already theirs, and with every world they consumed, it seemed that their victory was certain. But the dark has its secrets. And the enemy, in their hunger, had overlooked one. Far beyond the maps of living empires, in a region of space where the stars themselves seemed tired, something began to stir. For centuries it had slept in silence, hidden under veils of dust and darkness. Ancient satellites drifted, broken and blind, around worlds that no traveler dared to approach. Nothing moved there. Nothing lived there. Or so the galaxy believed. Then the signals grew stronger. At first they were faint, just static bursts dismissed by most as the random noise of the void. But patterns emerged, rhythms too precise to be chance. Coordinates hidden within pulses of energy, and those who followed the signals vanished without a trace. Scouts never returned. Probes sent to investigate went silent. The few fragments of data that came back spoke of massive energy readings, too large to belong to any natural source. And then came the light, in the black stillness of a forgotten system. Engines that had not burned for centuries came alive. It began as a glow beneath the dust, like embers awakening in an endless night. Then the glow spread, growing into rivers of fire that traced across titanic hulls of steel. One by one, colossal shapes emerged from the shadows. The first ship lifted slowly, as though shaking off the weight of centuries. Its hull was scarred, its armor darkened with time, but its core still burned bright. Symbols long forgotten by the galaxy shone across its surface. The mark of Earth, the silent crest of humanity. Behind it, more giants awakened. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, carriers, monuments of war built in an age when humanity refused to bow. Each one roared to life with a thunder that rolled across the void. A fleet of steel titans rose together, filling the darkness with their light. No message was sent. No broadcast was made. Humanity's fleet had no need for words. Their return was not an announcement. It was a promise. And somewhere, deep within that fleet, a single voice spoke. A commander who had waited for this hour, whose ancestors had sworn an oath across generations. The galaxy will not fall. We will not allow it. The forgotten fleet of humanity had awakened, and the silence of centuries was broken by the sound of war returning. But outside that system, no one yet knew. To the galaxy, the invaders still seemed unstoppable. To the broken survivors, hope was still nothing more than a dream. They could not yet see the storm that was rising in the shadows, the storm that would carry the mark of humanity. At first, no one believed it. Reports came from broken outposts, whispers carried across emergency channels. Entire invasion lines of the enemy were gone, not defeated after long battles, but erased in silence. Command ships that once broadcast their victory fell silent. Systems that had been lost were now flashing strange signals as if someone else had taken control. The alien councils called these reports lies. They said it was only confusion, the last cries of the desperate. But then the evidence could no longer be denied. Warlords who had marched without fear now returned with shattered fleets. Survivors spoke of giants of steel, ships the size of cities moving with cold precision, weapons that burned brighter than suns, cutting through the invaders as if they were nothing. The galaxy trembled. Civilians who had accepted their fate now whispered a new word: humanity. That name, once spoken only in old stories, rose again in every corner of the stars. On shattered worlds, survivors looked up into the night and prayed to see the mark of Earth. Soldiers who had lost their cause now fought harder, believing that somewhere unseen the human fleet was near, but the enemy felt it too. For the first time they hesitated. Scouts that had once traveled freely now vanished in the dark. Their commanders studied the wreckage of their fleets and saw weapons they had never faced before. The laughter they once carried turned quiet. Their war machine had met something stronger, and they could not understand it. Still, the galaxy did not see the humans directly. Their fleet moved like a shadow, striking fast, vanishing without a trace. No broadcast, no alliance, no speeches of friendship, only fire and silence after fire. It was as if the humans did not return to be seen. They returned to fight. And across the stars, one question spread like wildfire. If humanity is truly back, what else have they hidden in the dark? The enemy gathered their strength. For the first time since their conquest began, they hesitated, then moved with caution. They had crushed every empire, erased every resistance, but now something had risen that they did not understand. Their commanders called for their greatest armada, a force so vast it blotted out the stars. They believed sheer numbers would break whatever ghost had awakened in the dark. The galaxy watched in silence. Civilizations that had survived only by hiding waited for the end. Some prayed the reports were true. Others feared the enemy's strength was too great. No one knew what to believe until the horizon of space burned with fire. Humanity's forgotten fleet emerged. They did not come as allies bearing words of comfort. They came as war-made flesh. Steel titans stretched across the void, each ship carrying scars from battles long past but burning with new power. Their formation was perfect, their silence louder than any speech. Against the largest armada ever seen, they did not falter. They advanced. The first clash was thunder in the black. Enemy ships fired in a storm of light, weapons that had destroyed countless fleets before. But the human warships did not fall. Their shields held. Their guns answered. Beams of burning light tore through enemy lines, splitting ships apart in seconds. Carriers unleashed swarms of fighters that cut into the enemy like blades of fire. The void became a storm of wreckage. The invaders, who had once mocked every resistance, found themselves outmatched. Their lines broke. Their formations crumbled. For the first time, their fleets retreated. The war machines that had seemed endless were driven back, their confidence shattered. Across the galaxy, survivors wept as they watched the impossible become real. The name of humanity, once a forgotten echo, now became a battle cry. Soldiers fought harder, leaders stood taller, and even the most broken worlds dared to hope. The tide had turned. The battle was not over. The enemy was still vast, still dangerous, still capable of destruction. But the galaxy no longer felt alone. Humanity's fleet had returned not as a legend, but as a living storm. And in their silence, in their unshakable advance, one message was clear. The galaxy would not fall. Humanity had returned, not as victims of history, but as its final defenders.